Everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, LeBron James out for at least a month. Ugh, that's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, and on weekends once the season starts going on. No matter where you get your podcasts, this one's always going to be free for you, never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 36,000 subscribers, Andy, are all real upset because the news out of El Segundo on Thursday was not good. LeBron James will not play the rest of the preseason and now will not be ready for the regular season. Shams Charania at ESPN reporting that LeBron will be reevaluated in 3 to 4 weeks, just reevaluated, dealing with a case of sciatica. So we'll break all that down in a minute or two. Want to let people know first, though, that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. So, already, Andy, it had been becoming more clear that this injury that was keeping LeBron from playing was less about rest and more about an inability to be on the floor. That there was a real injury behind this glute issue that he was dealing with, a nerve issue in his glute, which turning out to be sciatica is not terribly surprising. But a rougher timeline was put on it on Thursday.
They are related issues, like you said. The definition from the Cleveland Clinic, sciatica is nerve pain from an injury or irritation in your sciatic nerve. In addition to pain, it can involve tingling or numbness in your back or butt that can radiate down your leg. More severe symptoms are also possible. So it feels like they've come up with a more specific, or just giving us more specific information than they had before, from Jeff Stotts, a very well-known and respected sports injury guy. He's been on our show before. On Twitter, you can follow him at Street Clothes on Twitter. Quote, massive LeBron injury update. Sciatica occurs when the longest nerve in the body becomes impinged, often due to a disc in the lower back or muscle in the glute region. Addressing the root of the problem is key to recovery. In other cases of sciatica in the NBA, often accompanied by considerable time lost. One of the most well-known cases of sciatica in the NBA is LeBron's Mind the Game host, Steve Nash. Nash's sciatica was linked to multiple bulging discs in his back and spondylolisthesis.
Sure.
Sure. Close enough.
Yeah, I mean, look, that the Lakers fans hear nerve issue and, it's like, and they remember Steve Nash and how his career was derailed. We are not going there yet in terms of what is happening with LeBron, but I think, first things first, he is going to miss not just the opener, but very likely, at least the first, 8 or 9 games of the season.
It's 9 game. If you're going, let's say 4 weeks, if you just wanted to make that the point of delineation to begin, 4 weeks is the first 9 games of the season, concluding with the game against San Antonio on November 5th. The next game after that is the 8th of November against the Hawks. So I guess in theory, LeBron could go 4 weeks, get evaluated, have a couple days in between that evaluation and days off to maybe practice or just work this up, see how the body reacts. Mm-hmm. Maybe plays that game on the 8th against the Hawks, but you start stretching pretty believably into 12, maybe 15 games just between LeBron's age, the caution that's going to be there, the lack of practice time that you'd want LeBron to get to see how these things react before putting him out.
Right, because you don't want you got to see you practice and then you wake up the next day. What does it look like? You wake up the day after that. What does it look like? You really need to make sure you have a handle on this before you get back into.
That's why the ninth. That's why that gap between the 9th and the 10th game jumped out at me immediately, because it's a rare couple days off between games.
I look at this, and I mean, I think what you're talking about there is probably the best case scenario. If indeed they are,
there's no probably, it's definitely.
If the reevaluation comes at 3 weeks in this 3 to 4 week time period, and LeBron is feeling really good, and you can get back on the floor and practice for a week or whatever, then you are in that neighborhood of 3 to 4 weeks, 9 games or something like that. I think realistically, though, the Lakers should be planning for 20, an estimation that LeBron misses the first quarter of the season, because this type of injury is very challenging to manage. And we saw, Jeff in his thread about this noted, like, you need to really understand where the impingement is, that's hurting this nerve, like where it is, and then address it at the source, was what he was talking about. Like, there's some work that goes into figuring out what's happening here and treating it correctly to try to prevent recurrence. And that could take, given his age, like you say, an extra week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3. So I would be really pleased if by game 21, LeBron was was back in the lineup. I'd be thrilled if it was better, but I think I'm going to set my expectations at a core based on what we're being told now, that it's a quarter of the season.
Well, it's definitely going to be a notable absence. Like, there's no way around that. I would be very surprised if it's fewer than 10 games at the very least. This is obviously a lot for the Lakers to overcome. I guess I was going to say, you could look at it, I'm not going to say glass half full, but glass a third full. You could theoretically look at this and say, well, they haven't had LeBron yet at all during training camp, which obviously is an issue in and of itself, but at least they would theoretically not be adjusting to his absence because they haven't had him.
Right.
Except for the fact, and we're going to get into this over the course of the show, Luca has been decreasingly available, including today's practice, Thursdays. I was in El Segundo for the post media session, which JJ Redick was in a very poor mood, very uncharacteristically unchatty, few words as possible. He had described LeBron as, quote, on his own timeline. That was before we knew the context.
Right, with a clear pause. It was a really interesting exchange, because there was like a pause, and you could tell he was sort of searching for the right way to say it. And the way it came out of his mouth sounded like real frustration that players weren't on the floor.
Well, I'll tell you what it sounded like. It sounded like, and we can address this in the show too, what we are seeing from a lot of fans, whether in the comment section on YouTube for our show or hitting us up on Twitter at Cam Brothers, and I want to make it clear, this is not how JJ was doing it, but they might have described this as LeBron being on his own timeline, because he was making up the timeline as he goes, because he doesn't want to be out there for training camp, because he's pissed off that he doesn't have an extension.
I've seen that. I've seen just, even lesser versions of that, come down to the idea that, LeBron just is maybe like healthier than, healthy enough to play, but is being overly, whatever it might be. The way that JJ said he's on his own timeline, I don't necessarily think one automatically has to do with the other. I mean, in the sense that I think what probably affected his mood was he probably got the news before, a little before us, and just said the Lakers said, hold it. But I think had he, I don't know if it's a direct A to B thing. JJ says what he says and the Lakers release a statement, but I'm glad it happened that way, because if the Lakers hadn't said anything about LeBron today, the Lakers universe would have been talking about, like, is JJ Redick mad at his stars for not being on the floor? Because that's what it sounded like. But obviously this injury, which I've been talking about all week, as I've been growing increasingly concerned that, all the people who want to maximize training camp, this, that, like, it's not a want. It's like they want LeBron on the floor. They can't do it. When you start to combine it now with the Luka issue, it's a reasonable thing to be nervous if you're a Lakers fan. We'll break it down next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by PrizePicks, and every day you make decisions in life. But on PrizePicks, being right with your decisions can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it is good to be right. Playing PrizePicks, it is a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards, for example, or Saquon Barkley, 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns or no touchdowns. However you're picking, you're in the game. And I love how quick this is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. They've got a new feature called Stacks. So if you want to ride with the player, you can select their passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns, all in one lineup. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in your $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right.
So, quick reminder, obviously we love when folks tune in on YouTube and catch the show there, subscribe. We also obviously love our audio listeners, whether you're getting the show through Apple, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you do it. We appreciate it, but make sure you're subscribing in one or multiple places to the program. And of course, when things like this happen, the LeBron news, we did a show this afternoon, a special bonus show, which you can obviously check out in either format. So that's why you want to subscribe, because if you're not subscribing, you may miss those reaction shows. Okay, so LeBron, we know, is going to miss some time, like over the, we will look into starting lineups, because I think this fairly well cements Rui Hachimura as starting, but now they got another spot they got to figure out. And so who's going to be the 5th starter now that LeBron?
Marcus Smart is back at practice, though, so that helps. He said he felt great. He said he felt really good.
It obviously puts more pressure on Austin Reeves. It's going to put more pressure on Rui to be a big part of the offense. The trickle down here is something we'll have a chance to talk about. But Andy, the trickle down is going to trickle even more if something's wrong with Luca. And the Lakers haven't said anything. But Luca has not practiced this week for all intents and purposes. He's done light workouts, he's done all that kind of stuff. And in the wake of the somewhat confusing and or controversial statements from DeAndre Ayton earlier this week at practice, when he was saying, what's it like to work with LeBron and Luca? And he said, I haven't done it yet. And people were like, wait a minute, what does that mean? You confirmed when you were at practice with JJ, Luca did in fact practice in full, scrimmaging, doing everything last week. That means he was a full participant last week, missed both preseason games because of Eurobasket was how they framed it, just being, cautious, getting him off his feet. But this week hasn't been participating either. If he doesn't practice in, Saturday, Lakers are taking off Friday, or scheduled to at least. And if he doesn't play Tuesday or Sunday or Tuesday, like something's going on here.
Yeah, and it's funny, actually. I asked JJ just directly. So Luca, just for clarification's sake, Luca did practice in full, all that stuff. And he said, yes. I had planned to actually ask, like following up, can you just provide some clarity about what's going on with Luca? But the session with JJ, like I said earlier, went surprisingly short. Like JJ is typically both very verbose, but also pretty generous. He's pretty generous with us. So I kind of been pacing myself to give other people opportunities for questions and all.
Well, and also too, it's like, health for people who don't go to practice all, like, generally speaking, like, who practiced, who didn't, health updates, whatever, is like the leadoff question. So you learn who was in, who was out, whatever. All of that got kind of hijacked today. And then, so you say, oh, this guy didn't practice. Hey, you mentioned blank sat out. What's going on there? What's your, like, nobody had a chance to ask that about Luca because it ended so fast.
Yeah, it's very unusual with JJ. Like, typically he gives us a fair amount of time. I think now that we learn more context, he was probably looking to get out of there as quick as he could before he eventually accidentally gave away too much information before the organization did or whatever. But it's become, without knowing the exacts, it is becoming at least clear to me, unless they are just holding out Luca out of extreme load management, excess of caution, whatever, which would underscore I feel like you're not getting the most out of training camp concerns. Luca has been de-escalating what he's been doing in practice as we get closer to the actual games. That doesn't feel good.
It doesn't. And, I think a couple things. First, the logic would be you ramp up. You build up, like he would start slow and build up more in that second week to prepare for that second run of games or something. Like, it did not surprise me, especially given the Lakers have 6 preseason games and not the standard 4, that Luka might not play in those first 2 games, just because you've got 4 more. You do want to kind of be mindful of how much he's already played at a very high level of intensity in Eurobasket. So you got to be careful of that. So maybe there's a reason you would do it the other way, where you start hard, take a break, and then finish that.
None of this felt weird until Luka started practicing less this week. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Everything else felt normal up to that point.
Right, totally fine. And then, I could, JJ, I will say this. There has been some speculation that the Lakers aren't taking this seriously, or that JJ is de-emphasizing the preseason or whatever it might be. It was pretty clear listening to him talk today, or Thursday, I should say, that he was frustrated by all of this because, Marcus Smart, who was sick, back on the floor, Gabe Vincent playing again, Max Kleber, I think they're still waiting on. Thiero, they're still waiting. But like, the bulk of this stuff was intact, except they can't get their stars on the floor. And, the downside of the Luka experience, and there isn't that much of it, is when he's not there, like, it's almost impossible to practice stuff.
Well, especially if LeBron isn't there. Like, LeBron is a pretty good facsimile for Luka if you need one. But if you don't have either one of them, respectfully to Austin Reeves, he's not there.
It's not the same thing. Even he's a good passer, he's a good player, whatever. There's levels to this. It is an entirely different deal. Luka runs everything around your offense. He is the center of this stuff, and it's just, you can do things, but everything you're doing, is going to be vastly different with Luka on the floor. And so it was pretty clear that Redick was frustrated, not because, I'm not saying that Luka should be practicing. That is not at all what I'm saying. I do not know what is going on. And that, I think, is what makes everybody really nervous. But there is no de-emphasis of the importance of this stuff, or championship conditioning, or the, sort of broad charge the Lakers are unserious about the preseason. I think clearly LeBron couldn't play, obviously. And I'm increasingly concerned that Luka can't either. Hopefully, whatever it is a matter of them being incredibly cautious and all that kind of stuff. But until we learn more, I think everybody's imagination is going to go a little bit.
JJ, in talking about this, what it potentially does to the team during training camp, and I think he is now conceding they are not getting out of this what they wanted. Quote, You got to play the cards you're dealt. I know that's a cliche, but that's just reality. And it's true. I mean, you do have to play these cards. You do have to make the most of it, try to make the best of it. But there's no question, especially considering how other teams around the league, and in particular the West, they've had their stars out there, including guys who played in Eurobasket, like the Lakers, and combined with the fact that they have not looked great in either one of these preseason games, which otherwise wouldn't be that big of a deal. But when you put it all together, it feels like they are behind the 8 ball.
And after the break, we'll talk about sort of what comes next. But, we had spent most of the offseason, I think, pretty consistently. I know I have consistently thought of the Lakers as a team that was in that tier. You have Oklahoma City clearly at the top. They won, 67 games last year with all 3 of their most important players missing at least some time, if not a lot of time. I think Jalen Williams missed a few games. Or maybe
I don't remember Jalen Williams or Shea missing a lot of times.
Chet missed a ton of time. I could look it up, but either way,
I mean, Shea couldn't have missed that much time. He won MVP.
That's true. That's a good point.
And Jalen Williams made
Jalen was made team. So maybe it was just the
Chet
one.
missed a lot of time.
You know what?
Hartenstein missed some time.
They had guys further down the rotation who missed a lot, but their stars played. So that's my fault. But anyway, regardless, they won 67 games last year. I think it was. They could easily win more than that this year, just with natural growth and a little better luck. I put Denver right behind them. Houston was in that group, in that little tier with Denver. I think losing Van Vliet knocked them down into the group that I had the Lakers in. So the question becomes, what does this do to the Lakers? Does 20 potential games without LeBron drop the Lakers 2 or 3 games further back in the Western Conference, which, as we know, could be the difference between a 3 seed and a 7 seed. So we'll do that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season, it is in full swing. FanDuel is making sure you are ready for every kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel fits whatever way you want to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. If you're somebody that just has a feel for how a fourth quarter is going to shake out, you can get ahead of those results with a little wager. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're rooting for the team that you love IRL or you're just keeping an eye on that fantasy lineup. So you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Locked on Lakers is also brought to you by Quo, one of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. Same great business phone system you've heard us talk about before, but with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table for you and your business. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system, streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so you don't have to carry around 2 phones or 3 phones. You don't have to rely on a landline anymore. And you get a built-in AI agent. This is a game changer, can answer calls after hours, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you are off the clock. Because, Andy, your business is never off the clock, even if you're sleeping. So see why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, again, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed. It remains to be seen, obviously, what the Lakers look like at playoff time and who's hurt and who's not, for not just the Lakers, but everyone else around the league. But it also makes a difference how you get to that point. And who's which seed and who's having to play on the road the entire time, or who gets stuck in the play-in or whatever it might be. And 20 games without LeBron, and I'm estimating here it's going to be probably almost certainly 10. I think probably more, or they should at least prepare for more. That, I'm not going to say it sinks them, but I know there are people who want LeBron out of town, but you're talking about an all-NBA performer last year who finished 6th in MVP voting. That is not easy to just recreate with what you have available on your roster, no matter who is on your team.
I mean, it just becomes incredibly important that Luca, whatever is happening with him right now, once the regular season begins, Luca's fine. And if Luca is fine and healthy and everybody else stays healthy, and I think they play to the top of their potential, I think they have the potential ability to stay reasonably afloat, stay 500-ish, which all things considered, if you went 10 to 20 games without LeBron, 500-ish, you could do a hell of a lot worse in terms of that interim period. And then as long as LeBron eventually comes back, stays on the court, and everybody else stays reasonably healthy, the way that would be part of the equation regardless, I think you can make up some of that time. The schedule, thankfully, is not brutal to open the season. Like they open with the first 9 games, the 9 games that it seems like LeBron is definitely going to miss. Golden State, Minnesota, Sacramento, Portland, Minnesota again, Memphis, Miami, Portland again, San Antonio. Couple pretty tough games in there, in particular 2 against Minnesota that early, not easy, but there's some winnable games in there. And, when you thought all hands were going to be on deck, the idea was the Lakers can maybe jump out really strong with that opening slate and build up a cushion in the West. But if nothing else, the schedule now in this new context maybe offers them a decent opportunity to just survive.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it, and keep in mind, all of this is relative because there are no easy stretches in the Western Conference. When you're playing games that are primarily in your own conference, there's almost no such thing as an easy stretch. So, Golden State, assuming they start the season healthy, is a good team. Minnesota, I think we all know about them. Sacramento feels like a lower level play-in-ish team in the West. Portland is trying to move their way up into a play-in situation. Memphis, who knows? It's just they're already banged up.
Ja may be their starting center at this point. They're missing all their front court guys.
They're already banged up. So Miami is not a great team. You see Charlotte in that first 20. You see the Pelicans, who are tough to peg at this point. A couple games against Utah. Like, you're right. At the very least, there are, games against teams that even without LeBron, you should be favored to beat. Not even just like you can hang in there. Because like you say, you still should have Luka Dončić, and a team with more depth than last year. And you're going to need now. I mean, the other thing too is, like we talked about, it obviously puts more pressure on Reeves, Rui, DeAndre Ayton becomes a much more significant part, not just of the sort of team's defense, but now I had said before, like, you don't need the version of DeAndre Ayton who can, score 20 points a game. Now,
if it helps, DeAndre Ayton loves the version of DeAndre Ayton.
Oh, he sure does. He sure does. And, he's a career 16-point-a-night guy. But I was, on a team with LeBron, Luca, Austin, Rui's going to get his, like that. I was thinking, I was sort of pegging Ayton as like a 12-ish a night with every third or fourth, he's like up to 16. And, a couple, a few times every week or two, like you get that 20-point game because that's how the game plays out. Now, I think that, you're looking at a situation where 15 to 20 a night is what they need out of him to keep the offense going. He's going to become a much more central part of what they do because that 2-man game with Luca is going to be significantly more important. Moving further down the rotation, everybody bumps up a slot. Jake LaRavia becomes more important. Gabe Vincent becomes more important. The defense and availability of Marcus Smart and Jared Vanderbilt become more important. I mean, we'll find out like how much better their depth is than last year pretty quick.
Yeah. This is a real challenge for them. And they are entering this challenge when the regular season begins off poor circumstances. And at this point, like JJ say, you play the cards that you're dealt. They were dealt 2-7 offsuit. They have to figure out a way to make this work. But it really now becomes incumbent, to whatever, if Luca can practice, and let's just say like this has been an excess of caution at this point, you got to stop being cautious and you got to get the guy out there. I mean, like they need the reps together. And if it's a health issue, then you just like a genuine health issue, something specific, then you really got to hope that they just get the thing under control and together, because
you have to be, I think, if there really is you have to be overly cautious at this point. You cannot. And
well, as much
as everybody wants, I mean, inside the building wants and understands the importance, and certainly outside the building understands the importance of that time to build chemistry, to try to compete in a brutal conference where like literally every percentage point of your ceiling like makes a difference. Like that can be being 3% better could be the difference between, again, of a 4 seed and a 5 and a 6, and all this stuff matters. But if there is something going on with him that requires maintenance, a recurrence of the calf thing, or a back, and again, I am not basing this on do not aggregate. You have to do what is most conducive to getting him on the floor healthy at the start of the season. Yeah, you just can't screw with it.
No, like I said, if it's something specific, that's different. If it's just overabundance of caution because you are thinking 5,000 foot view because you're just thinking 5,000 foot view, I think that's the point where you got to get yourself down to say 3,000 feet, and you have to start. You can't be so afraid of guys getting hurt that you end up cutting off opportunities to actually be as good as you would be healthy because you were too scared to actually practice. Also, I want to make this very clear. I am not in any way suggesting that one is connected to the other, because I've already seen this come up in the comment section or whatever, but I couldn't help myself and Googled connection between sciatica and golf.
Of course.
Because LeBron just started playing golf.
And that is the biggest difference between this season. You and everyone.
Now, here's what came up. And
exactly
again,
the same place.
This is an AI overview, which are notoriously spotty with accuracy. And I cannot make this clear enough. I am not actually suggesting one led to the other. However, causes of sciatica in golfers: poor swing mechanics, improper swing technique, such as twisting or rounding the back, can compress or irritate the sciatic nerve. LeBron's swing is garbage. It's 10. I say this as somebody with a terrible swing. My swing's better than LeBron's. And
is it?
Yes, it is.
No, it is not.
Yes, it is. Actually,
I have seen you both. It is not.
I actually think.
But my point is, you shouldn't play either because you're going to get sciatica.
Nah, I don't get sciatica from it. I just get embarrassed. Overuse in LeBron went pretty heavy into the golf. And finally, age. As golfers get older, LeBron just keeps getting older, even though he's not really technically a golfer.
You went to where, first of all, just the notion of him being out with sciatica in his age 41 season is it's very lazy work from the writers.
Yeah.
But You went to the exact same spot that everybody else did.
Of course.
Everybody went to the golf.
Again, cannot emphasize this enough. I am not suggesting one led to the other. It just.
But he better not pick up a bleeping club until the end of the year.
No, I would. No, not the end of the year. End of career. End of career.
At least the end of his Lakers career.
And end of, yeah, I guess if he wants to do this as a Cav, more power to him. But
not my
end of his Laker career, he better not play anymore.
No more.
Bronny, however, apparently can play.
Yeah. All right. Locked On Lakers on YouTube as we go hang out with over 36,000 subscribers to the channel. Subscribe at Apple. Subscribe at Spotify. Make sure you're getting this show delivered to you in as many ways as you can. We'll see everyone tomorrow.